Now I can't even figure out how to get us online. It is so damn frustrating. I don't know what to do, Tommy. I don't know what to do.
David, I'm having a freaking day too. Today they picked today. They're paving the streets all around my house. There's a second ago my house was shaking. The nerve of them! Don't they know we're doing something important here?
What's wrong with these people?
You can't park out there.
No one called me to tell me that they were changing this whole goddamn system. You know, I had to figure it out at the very last minute. Can you believe that?
This is just one of those days, man. Stressing me out too. Oh shit! Are we live? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, hi everybody. Hey, Tommy Stoffel here. Life Matters TV. Today's topic is God, I'm so frustrated I can't even think straight. Oh yeah, Quitcho Bitchin. So David McLeod, I'm a little frazzled right now. That was funny. My co-host here is with me today, and yeah, we're frustrated and frazzled, right? All stressed out, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So David, why don't you say hello to everybody and take us away from this nonsense.
Hi everybody from Northern California. It's true. We did have some challenges this morning, and so consequently we ended up starting up a little bit later than usual. And it appears that there has been some technical changes that have taken place here, and Tommy does indeed have people, you know, building a whole new. I think they're building a freeway or something over his house.
A new LA freeway in my backyard.
And so, you know, this is perfect. I mean, this is exactly what happens in our lives. We end up, you know, things go along real smoothly for a while, and then something happens that just kind of throws a wrench in the monkey works, or a monkey in the wrench works, or something like that. And what happens is we react. We get upset. We start venting, and maybe venting angrily at other people, and making all kinds of negative judgments about them, and dumping on them, and that sort of thing. And it's what happens. And the question is, how do we slow that down? How do we stop it? How do we get control of ourselves and maybe kind of get back to that centered place of equanimity and compassion and start to just relax again? How do we do that? That's what this topic is all about.
Yeah, so we had a perfect two real world lead-ins to today's discussion. And David, you know, how do you control yourself? I like to start just talking about that word, control. Because a lot of times we think that, you know, controlling things is the answer. That if we can just get control of this situation, if we can just control the way that person's acting, if we can just control the day that they're going to come and pave my street, well, we're control freaks, and we're control freaks. We're kind of programmed to control, to be control freaks. I get paid in my professional job to control people, to control scope, and to control schedules, to control time. Go control time, for Pete's sake. And we get in this mindset. And what does that do? It frustrates the hell out of us, and it stresses us out because we can't control everything. We can barely control ourselves. No less. No. So that's where I start. Sometimes I just check my control radius and laugh about things, because I don't know. What do you do, David? Just your hand went up for controlling.
Oh hell, I don't have any kind of issues with control. No, none whatsoever. I do like to be in control of things. I mean, I think what that comes from for me is the fear of what might happen if I don't have control. It's really all about. I think I can trace it back to my childhood, where my mom always seemed to be in charge, and things didn't always go well when she was in charge, and sometimes I got hurt. And so when I didn't know what was going to happen, when I was relying on somebody else to kind of be in charge and to take control and so forth, it didn't always bode well for me. And so, and not only that, but there was another piece of that took place in my childhood where sometimes my mom would say one thing and do something else. And so consequently I was getting a plethora of mixed messages, and I just didn't know what to trust. And so for me, having control meant being able to know for sure what was going to happen, or so I thought. That was, that was the truth in my young mind. And so I think that's where that whole idea of control came from. And I don't know, maybe do you resonate with that? Is that sort of true for you too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because everyone grows up. What flew into my head when you first started talking was fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
There's this fear of the unknown, and that drives a lot of people, our parents included, and their parents before them, and eons and eons of human beings, into this mode of feeling like they need to control the situation because otherwise you don't know the outcome's gonna be. And man, we can spend a week on talking about control, thinking about this, because it leads to so much stuff. I mean, I used to worry myself sick because I was thinking about how to control the situation, how to make this change, how to think that possibility through to try to steer the outcome. And so it does come. It comes at an early age, and it comes from watching other people trying to control and not doing too well at it, trying to control us, and we don't want to be controlled, right?
Right. We want to be free.
We want to be free.
Yeah.
So it kind of, we're trained to do something that totally goes against our nature, our human nature is to be free and is to have free will. And yet here we are trying to control everything else and everybody else's free will in every situation. And no wonder why we're, stressed out and getting sick.
Isn't that an interesting observation, though, as you mention it? I want to be free. Absolutely. I want to have the complete and total freedom to make my own decisions without having to answer to anybody. Right. And in the process of doing that, I recognize that, wait a minute, if I have that freedom, well, you might make a decision that impedes my freedom, so I have to control your decisions. I have to control all the things that you do. It's a messed up thinking process. And of course, it's impossible. I mean, I might be able to, in some small way, control one person, especially when that person is small and happens to be my child. It's much easier to control children that have come from my own genetic material than it is to control people outside of that. But I have this weird sense of power over these people when that happens, and I think it's an interesting problem and something that we all need to look at.
I totally agree, and you're getting into the depths of it, of where it comes from, and that we project it. So aha number one here today is just realize that we want to be free. And I think if you ask anybody in the room or anybody in the world, say, yeah, I want to be free, but yet we turn around and we try to impose restrictions on everybody else. So you're right. It's just it's a big conflict. It's a giant conflict. It's part of the human race, the rat race of the human race, of trying to control. And look at what it does, right? Hang on a second.
Okay.
Hey, would you guys shut that freaking truck up? God, get him, son. And right, so you get all tensed up because things aren't working out because they're and what did they? I think somebody said, oh, it's on the Lululemon bag. It says 99% of all illness is related to stress.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when we're trying to control a situation and it's out of our control, or it's not within our span of control, I can't control the way somebody else is going to respond. I can't control the way somebody else is going to react. I may be able to influence that, right, depending on how much of a nice relationship I build with that person and what kind of rapport we have and how we communicate and cooperate and interact. But no, you don't know what's going on in somebody else's head. You don't know what childhood stuff they're dealing with. You don't know, when they were bullied. You don't know what brain they're bringing into a situation. So there's no way to control it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're just frustrating ourselves trying to. And there's a deep, big lesson in here.
Yeah, and I think that excuse me, I think that brings up the real question. What is it we're really trying to control anyway? I think we talked a little bit about this. We're trying to create safety for ourselves. We're trying to create a place where we don't have to be in fear of the unknown. I think that's a big piece of it. But in reality, I think when I sit down and I think about it for a moment, when I just kind of meditate on it, I realize I can't control it anyway. So it's a complete waste of my energy and my time to try to control it. So that is strictly an ego mind response to a situation, and it's not something that comes from the heart. That's what I think.
Yeah, very true. I mean, and then if we take that, so if it's an ego response and it's not coming from the heart, what comes from the heart, right? Like what, like, so we'll I think we'll get there. I'm not sure we're ready to go there yet, because I want to explore a little more about, quit your bitching, complaining. So controlling is one aspect, and I think we can spend a whole show on control because we're deep in it. But I also want to hit on other things because that may unlock keys for some people. But there's other reasons that we complain and bitch too. So
Sure. Yeah. I mean, let's face it. I think there are legitimate reasons for complaining. Absolutely. I think that, things happen in our world that we don't like. They have an impact on us. They have an impact on our families. They have an impact on our communities, and we see this is really not a healthy thing. And yet at the same time, we may not see a way for us to offer a solution. And so rather than do anything about it, we just complain, and then we look for other people to complain with, and we see this misery loves company thing that I think you talked about in the text that you put out. This is very, very interesting stuff.
yeah, and there's a lot in that one too, right? The misery loves company and the pity parties that we get into, because that can turn dark in a hurry too, right? You get into the gossiping where you're down talking, you're in a crowd, and you think about the dynamics of this, right? Let's say you're in a crowd, you and maybe one other person, or you and 3 or 4 other people, and you're gossiping, or you're complaining about something. Think about the energy you're creating, right? As human beings, we have this ability to create. Yeah. With our thoughts and with our energy, with our heart, our energy system, we create stuff. And if you have people standing around, you can create good stuff, or you can create not so good stuff, or you can just be having neutral conversations. But you get into this thing about complaining and bitching and moaning and gossiping, and then you start talking about other people and bitching and moaning and gossiping. I call that a death spiral. Mm-hmm. Because you're just taking yourself down, you're taking the situation down, you're taking other people down with you. And what good comes of that? So this comes in so many different flavors. Gossiping, we hold grudges against people too, and then we bitch about that. Oh, they did this to me. I can't believe that. And then, it's something 30 years ago that the person doesn't even know they did, or that they were just doing their best, and we're still holding grudges and bitching and moaning about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're right. It's the ego mind. It's the sense of self-importance. I'm so important, and I'm right all the fucking time.
Yeah. And that's true too. Actually, I do believe that there is truth in that statement that I am right all the time. I am right about my perspectives. I am right about my judgments. I'm right about my projections. That doesn't mean they're necessarily healthy for me or for the world, but I am right about them. And the other people who have their judgments about me and their perspectives and their so on and so forth, they're right too. And that's a real important piece, I think, for us to kind of remember, that we're all right. We're all right in the way we think. Whether that serves us or not is a completely different question. Whether it serves the world or not is another question. Whether it serves our higher purpose is a different question. But it's true. And this is the problem. We get caught up in this, oh, my ego mind, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. So, I don't even have to listen to you because I know I'm right.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing there too is like that we're right, that we're okay. We need to come into this whatever game we're doing without just, what, here I am. This is how I am right at this very moment. Whatever's going on in my head, whatever I think is right, to me right now is right. And again, if you're not trying to impose that on the world and not trying to control the world with your righteousness, then okay, hang on to it. But at the same time, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, he goes, you know what? I'm not going to be perfect tomorrow. I'm not going to be enlightened the next day, but I'm going to be a little bit better each day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A little bit better each day. And that's a commitment we want to make to ourselves. That's what I think, and I'm right about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And hold on, don't minimize it, because it's true. It is true. And that's the point. See, I can be right, and I can still ask myself, is that true?
Is that true? Yeah.
I can still ask myself that question, is that true? And then I might decide, okay, maybe it's not so true, and I can change my mind, and I can still be right. You see, I can be right even in the process of changing and improving and correcting myself.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I totally believe that we're doing the best with what we have right at this very moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the ideas, all the beliefs, all the feelings, everything we have right in this moment. I don't think there's many people walking around the planet that are intentionally doing harm. It's a very small minority. Most of us are doing the best we can do.
Absolutely.
With what we have. So in that sense, we're right. But my right today, I may look back on it next week and go, yeah, I didn't have that quite figured out yet. But I listened to a couple more of these replays from Tommy and David, and now I'm much better right than I was even last week.
Exactly. You know what this reminds me of? There's I can't remember where I saw this, but it was a beautiful metaphor that I heard. It's the story of an airplane that's flying from I don't know, San Francisco to New York. The interesting thing about that airplane is that it is off course nearly 100% of the time, and yet it makes it to its destination. And that's because of constant feedback and constant correction. Constant feedback, constant correction. We are exactly the same. We're on a journey. Where that journey is going, it's hard to say. We may know deep in our heart, and we may not. We may not have a clear picture of it. But one thing is true, we're constantly self-correcting. We're constantly looking and saying, is this the path I want to be on? And making a slight variation or correction, or maybe even turning around 180 degrees if we have to. This is very, very important, and I'm glad you brought that up. So just wanted to put that out there.
And you put it out there beautifully. That's a great metaphor, and I love the whole concept of it, right? Yeah, it's always, and you're talking in an actual aircraft. It's flying through the sky. It's never on its exact path. It's always somehow corrected.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that, man. I'm gonna shut up out there. I'm gonna. No, the house is actually shaking right now, which is cool.
I can see the camera moving.
So what else? So what else do we bitch and mind? Oh my gosh. This right here is a brilliant example of what my wife and I joke about and say, honey, that's kind of a first world problem. The fact that we have paved streets, the fact that we have sewer systems and running water and electricity and windows to protect ourselves so that the tar isn't flying in and smacking me in the face. What are you bitching about?
Exactly.
Is it a real problem, or is it, put it in perspective too. There are people on this planet that are really struggling and really suffering and barely making it, or having grave illnesses, or in the middle of a war. Sometimes that can just pull the rug out from under you as you're complaining.
Yeah, that's a beautiful reminder. I mean, and my complaint this morning was that the technology wasn't working. Think about this. I mean, I'm worried about some technology. It's kind of dumb, really, when you think about it. What would have been the big impact if we didn't have technology today? Well, a dozen, 24 people would have tried to log in. They would not have found us, and okay, so what? They know that we're doing our best, and they probably forgive us, and it would be all done, and we could do the same show next week if we had to. But the other piece is, you talk about the first world problem versus the third world or the fourth world problem or whatever, and that just reminds me so much of my trip to Liberia last year, where I got to be with some people who were in very, very, very difficult circumstances. And it just woke me up. I mean, here we are in the U.S. complaining about, our iPhone not working, or not getting 4 bars, or having, I can't decide what color fingernail polish to have, or, all of these ridiculous things. I'm thinking, wow, you guys got to go to Liberia. Those people are worried about where their next fresh water is coming from. You know, I've never had to worry about fresh water or food or any of that stuff. It really is a wake-up call, and thank you for reminding me about that, Tommy.
Oh, it's something that we need to just remind ourselves of all the time, because again, you look at when it comes down to it, the complaining, the bitching, the moaning, there's worry all laced into that. There's anxiety all laced into that. There's stress all laced into that, and think about what is actually happening. So I used to be a big worrier, and I would complain about things out loud, situations and life and bills and all that stuff. But the only thing I was actually doing was taking an energy inside my body and making it heavy, making it red, making it negative, and then spewing that energy almost like I was puking on the planet. Because it wasn't doing any good. It wasn't making the situation go away. It wasn't making a situation any better. I wasn't contributing at all to the goodness. I wasn't contributing positively. I was just dumping crap out on the floor.
Right.
And so we need to be, it's a responsibility game too.
Yeah.
If your complaining is going somewhere, you're really just hurting yourself. And if you hurt yourself, all right. If you want to keep it all inside and worry yourself to death, then that's what you're going to do. But dumping it out on the planet too?
Yeah, it doesn't seem very healthy, does it?
Not very nice.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, maybe there's a way for us to kind of short-circuit this. Because the last thing I want to do is I don't want to create the idea that people are somehow bad or wrong or broken or something just because they complain. We all have sometimes legitimate reasons to complain, but here's what we can do. Instead of vomiting our complaint energy all over the place the way you described it, we can always look underneath and we can say, all right, so what is it that I'm really complaining about? What is it that I'm concerned about? What am I trying to do here? And maybe the answers to those questions will be something like, well, I see a problem out there. And maybe it's a serious problem, maybe it's not. So now you can ask yourself, well, how serious is this problem? Is this a life-threatening problem? Is it a problem that needs my attention right now? Is it something that can wait till next week? What can I just forget about it? Maybe I have no control over it all. So we can go through that process. What am I really concerned about here? And what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? And once I've done that, I might be able to even come up with a solution. Yeah. And how much more do people respond when I offer a solution than when I offer the complaint?
Absolutely, right? Now you're doing something affirmative. You're being proactive. You're adding to the instead of subtracting from the equation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're laying us right into what I think the exercise should be for people. So I'm going to kind of formalize a little bit about what you're saying.
Okay.
And it's a list exercise. Again, paper, pencil, get it out right now and start the top of the list at least, and think about the problems or the situations that you want to change, as David said. Make a list of the things that you expect to have happen or things that you're passionate about. And just write it down. Everything from I want to make sure my kid gets into a good college to I want to solve world. I want everyone to be able to eat and be healthy on the planet. And so make that list, right? Make it. Write it. And then, as David said, come back and look at those things. And not only look at them with what can I do about it, but even before that, bring this word of control back in. Bring this control thing back into this equation, because a lot of stuff in our head, especially to the audience we're talking to, a lot of us carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We feel we have to save and we have to help and we have to do all this great stuff. Yeah. Well, a lot of that's not in our span of control, perhaps yet, right? Mm-hmm. So we look at what we can control as us. What can I do, as David, as you were saying? What can I do about it? And then what can I influence? Like, where's my sphere of influence on this one? And if it's not within your control or your influence, I say do something about it or drop it. Because if you're just carrying around the weight of making some big change or complaining about something, but you can't do anything about it, then what good is it doing you?
Yeah, those are great questions. And even when I look at a problem, I think I like to go a little bit deeper than that, for myself anyway. So what is it that really has me upset about this issue? Why am I so reactive? And maybe a why question isn't so helpful, because that just gets me back into my head to try and kind of rationalize it and reason about the problem. But maybe I can go down into my body and say, well, what am I feeling as I think about this problem, and I notice that anger energy coming up? What is it that I'm really concerned about? What is there, fear underneath that? And if it's fear, what am I afraid of? Is there sadness underneath that? And if so, what am I sad about? What do I believe I'm about to lose or I've lost already that is painful for me?
Yeah.
And if it's just straight anger because somebody has violated a boundary or something else, all right, that's cool too, but at least be honest about it. Look at what the reaction is about, and try to understand for yourself how it is that you got so charged up about this. And then once you've done that, now you can probably take a closer look and say, yeah, I guess I'm just kind of wound up because today's Friday and it's that time of the week for me to get wound up. I don't know. Or maybe there's a real problem and something that I need to address, and I can feel my passion energy coming up, and I want to address that. I want to go and find a way of fixing this problem.
Yeah. You're right on, and replay this section for yourself if you didn't get all of those steps that David just listed out. But that's the exact process to go through. So write your list, and the thing, write the list. Here's why: because until you write the list, it's like you got a bunch of zombies running around your head, a bunch of gremlins running around up there, and you don't know what they are. You can't make any order of them, but they're just influencing you and making you overreact and making you get angry and making all this stuff and making you gossip and worry and all this blah 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 blah. You start getting the stuff on paper. It's out of your head. It's on paper, and now you can look at it as like a separate party. And you say, oh, and half of them will just disappear. You're like, I had that in my head.
Yeah.
Gone. And then the other ones, you do what David said. You prioritize them. I'm passionate about this, so this is really important to me. High priority. Then you put it to the control test. What can I do about it? If you can do something, make a plan, do it. If you can't do anything that's really out of your control, you just have to let it go.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, another thing you can always do, doing doesn't necessarily mean doing by yourself.
Nice.
There may be other people in your life who have really a strong passion about this as well. Don't be afraid to talk about it with other people. Try to talk about it without letting it devolve into gossip and complaining, but see if you can do it with people who are also willing to talk about it without going into devolving into gossiping and complaining, so that together you might be able to come up with a plan. And maybe you can motivate a whole bunch of people to help you change the world. It doesn't take much. All it takes is one person with some passion and someone else to say, wow, I really like that. And they just kind of become part of the team. It's that simple.
I'm good with that, man. How about next week? What did we say we're going to talk about next week?
I thought you said something about day by day or something.
Day by day. Yeah, it kind of has to do with your plane metaphor, that we're a little off track, all the time, but we still get to our destination. So let's talk about day by day living, how to live day by day.
Yeah.
It's a much more, you're in the flow, much more peaceful way of doing things. And that was a judgment, but day by day next week.
And it was your judgment, and you were right.
I'm always right. David, I got to go yell at these guys some more, so we'll see.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And, please have mercy on us for that first couple of minutes when we started, because we were just kind of kidding.
Kinda.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Quitcho Bitchin. Bye, everybody.